Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Leverage Your Podcast show. And today I'm talking about publicity. And I mean, when you're guesting on podcasts, it's all about publicity, exposure. And I'm going to be talking to Mary O'Donoghue, who is a strategic media coach and a best-selling parenting author, by the way, and a former post producer of the Oprah Winfrey Show. So you got to know that you're going to get the top of the tips all about publicity today. And she's just an absolute doll. So I'm so excited to have you on my show, Mary.
I'm so excited to be here, Lindsay. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So because we can't talk about you without talking about Oprah, because it's just, everyone loves the star factor.
Yeah.
But the amount of work that you've done behind the scenes and the amount of experience and knowledge that you have is just absolutely staggering. Like, what would you say is the biggest thing that you learned from that?
It's funny. It's not like a television thing or whatever. It's the power of intention
Mm.
because Oprah had done an episode with white supremacists. I never know if it's supremacist or supremacist, but
Yeah,
she
I
had
know what
done
you
an
mean though.
episode. And so these folks were in the audience and they kind of tried to use that episode for their own agenda. And after that, and Oprah talks about this publicly, after that, she said to the producers, you need to bring me the intention for this media, this interview, this show, because otherwise, our program can get used by people in a way we don't want it to be used. She was very positive, and didn't want to bring any hate forward,
Yeah.
frankly. And so that power of intention was something that, she talked to the producers about. So every show had to have an intention. And so when we worked on the show, I was a post producer for many years. And so when we worked on the show, we really thought about that. So we knew the intention for that episode, and we made sure that we didn't deviate from that intention in the way that we edited the show. So, because, sometimes the shows would be taped longer than the
Oh
time
yeah.
allotted. And so that's, I think, the most important thing is
Yeah.
intention. And I take that into my own business as a strategic media coach. I take it into everything I do. And it makes things less random. If you have to think about your intention for doing something, and this will actually be something I'd be happy to talk about too, and how I bring it into what I teach. But once you have an intention, you have a direction. And then when something is incongruent with that intention, you can veer away from it. So it's a
Mhm.
really powerful lesson I learned from Oprah and from working at the Oprah show.
That makes total sense because you think there's so much airtime and conversations can go in many
Yeah,
directions. And in post production, if you're like, okay, this is the intention, I'm keeping this because I want to
right,
stay true to my mission, I want to
right,
stay true to myself. Same with like podcast guesting or being in media for
right,
authors, for entrepreneurs. It's like
100%.
sometimes you don't realize what you're saying and how you're saying it. And so, like, you would, I imagine, have to have so much strategy to keep that intention locked in, I'm guessing.
Yes, and I have this, I used the word random a moment ago. When you don't have intention, and we're going to be talking about intention, but when you don't have it, you can create what I call random acts of media. And I've
Ooh,
worked on more than 10,000 high profile television interviews in my 30 plus year career. And I've seen some of these random acts of media where someone just shows up and they just passively let the interview happen to them. So they just answer the questions and they
yes.
just, there's no strategy, there's no point, there's no intention. And so they end up with what I call a souvenir, because a media interview can be one of three things. A media interview, if you're prepared for it, can be a marketing asset that somebody else pays to create. The media outlet is paying to create it. They're giving you access to their massive audience, whether it be, a television show, a radio program, a podcast, a newspaper or magazine article, online or in print. They're giving you access to an audience they have gone to the work and expense of creating. And so it's extremely important not to create a random act of media, but to walk in there with
Hmm.
intention and strategy. So the other kind of interview you can create is a marketing liability that somebody else controls. That's the
Ooh,
media. So back in my day when I was, a post producer, and I've been a post producer in the last few years as well, is you don't want to give me a bunch of control over what you're saying. You don't want to give me all this extra stuff that I can take out or whatever, because I might take out the very thing you want in.
oh
And authors who lack strategy can often do these types of interviews where they end up hurting themselves. So they end up thinking, hey, it was just this casual conversation. And then they talk about things that are not applicable to their expertise
yeah,
or their book or what they have to offer. And then they create something that is a liability for them that
yeah,
lives forever and they have no control over. You have to think about that. So you can create a marketing asset if you're prepared. If you're unprepared and not strategic, you can create a marketing liability. And then this third thing, when you're completely, creating a random act of media, is you just create a souvenir. Well, that's lovely. You had a nice conversation. You can have a nice conversation with the person at the next table at a coffee shop tomorrow, right? That's not a strategic conversation. It's a
no,
lovely conversation. So these people would walk out of the studio heading to the green room, and I would see them as they came out of the control room working on TV shows, and they would just be calling their, significant others and saying, "Oh yeah, it went great." And I'm like, "Oh honey,
oh,
that was such a missed opportunity. You had a lovely conversation. You didn't panic.
hmm,
Good for you. What is going to come out of this? Absolutely nothing, because I can't save you from yourself
no,
if you give me nothing to work with in post production. If they talk a lot, I can pull things out,
yeah,
right? If they just talk too much or they lose their train of thought, we can clean that up. But if they're actively not giving me something to talk about, for example, I remember, sometimes you're asked specifically about your book, and this particular guest was asked about his book, and he was a um, celebrity-ish kind of guy, nobody I'd ever heard of, but he was well known in the sports world. And they asked him a question about the book, and he said, "I'll tell you what's not in the book." And he started to talk about his love life. It
oh my God, what the
was a
heck?
children's book.
That's so
I was
weird.
like, how can I fix that in post? I cannot fix that. I'm like, well, I ended up taking the whole question or whatever, but we took everything. We took so much of his interview out and we had such little to work with.
Ooh,
And that's not what you want. So now you've
no,
created something random. I mean, we made sure it wasn't a liability for this guy. We were able to take out whole questions and answers, really. But in a live interview, man, you would have been
yeah.
in trouble.
You
So,
would like, and you only get so many of those grand opportunities. It's like you
right.
don't want it wasted.
Right. So true. Absolutely.
Yeah, and honestly, like I feel like we're cut from the same cloth. It's like in podcasting, it's just like when you're guesting, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
It's not just, oh, I'll be on the show, it's exposure and oh, it's wasted opportunity. Like there's so much strategy and intention, like you say, that can go
absolutely.
into it.
Absolutely.
Now, what I love about you, because again, we're cut from the same
Oh,
cloth here,
yeah,
is
Lindsay.
you have a framework and the media impact framework, correct?
Media
Method,
impact
sorry.
method. Yeah. Yeah. So it's the letters of impact. And the word impact was so relevant because when I would talk to women nonfiction authors about, hey, I've got a book coming out, they would use the word impact. I really want to make an impact with
Mhm.
teaching, families how to do their finances, or I really want to make an impact with helping women be leaders, or I really want to make an impact with helping people deal with grief after loss. And so they would use this word impact over and over again. And I already had a program, a course called Media Success Blueprint. And the modules were identity, messaging, pitching. I was like, IMP.
It was meant to be.
And the next one was strategy. And I was like, yes, I'm going to change that to amplification. And then the next one was already communication. And then I added another one called transformation. So I was like, I'm already in this impact world without knowing it. And so it's the media impact method. So it's identity. Who
Mhm.
are you? Whom do you serve? Right? We've got to start there. And messaging, what is your message? Because your message needs to be concise and consistent across all forms of, wherever anybody can find you online or offline. So if you're one thing over on Instagram and something else on LinkedIn and something else on your website, that shuts down the media because that lack of consistency means they can't quite trust you.
Ooh, yeah.
They don't, it's not that maybe you're untrustworthy, it's that inconsistency is worrisome to them. So it's identity messaging, then pitching. How do you get on a media interview? How do you get on TV, radio, podcasts, etc.? You need to learn how to pitch. So I teach how to pitch, who to pitch, why to pitch, when not to pitch, how to respond to a pitch, all of this. So when you do get booked. And so that's a really, really important part of that program. That's my published to primetime program, which is we run twice a year, September and February we start. Each group runs for 6 months. And so then we have amplification, that strategy. Think like a producer. So I talk
Mm.
about how a pitch is an interruption. I'll say to people, what is a pitch? And they'll say, well, it's this, it's this, it's this. And I'll say, at the end of the day, to a media person, a pitch is one thing, it's an interruption. Now, when you think about that, you think about, okay, there's a busy producer at this TV show. She's got people in her office. She's, got a show that's coming up tomorrow. The guest just dropped out. Her, side, next in line producer is sick. And then somebody like me is like, hey, I need you to come in and watch the show that airs tomorrow so you can approve it. But meanwhile, her show that she's taping tomorrow is falling apart. That's who you're pitching. So when I say it's an interruption, think of it this way, Lindsay. So I'm here in my home office. So let's say I've been up here all morning and my son knocks at the door and he says, hey, mom, you make a great ham omelet. I just really am craving that ham omelet. I'm just wondering if you'd come downstairs to the kitchen and make me a ham omelet. I'm hungry. That is an interruption. What is he doing?
Mm.
He is asking me, who is busy, he's asking me for something. I want you to do something for me. That is 99.9% of pitches. Most pitches start with a line, hi, I'm hoping you can help me.
Ooh,
I'm hoping you can, or something like that. I'm hoping you
yeah.
can help me, right? I'm wondering if you can support me, whatever. And those are I never read anymore in a pitch. I delete the pitch because
Fair enough.
as a busy media person, I don't have time to help a random stranger. You may be lovely, but I got nothing. I haven't eaten and it's 5 p.m., right? So that's the reality. But there's another type of interruption. So let's say my son knocked at the door and said, hey, mom, I noticed you've been up here all day and you haven't come down. And I was just making myself an omelet. So I also made one for you. And I know how you love your green tea. So here's a cup of tea and an omelet. Have a good day, mom. Okay, that is also an interruption. So I'm in here writing or something. He interrupts me. But what does he do? He meets my needs and exceeds
Mm.
my expectations because
Yeah.
tea was a bonus, right? So that is also an interruption, right? But it's a strategic interruption. It's an interruption that understands that the media does not exist to promote your book.
Mm-mm.
The media exists to serve their audience. So where do you fit in? Well, you fit in how can you help that, let's say, busy television producer to help her audience, to, give them valuable content. When you approach it with that mindset, all of a sudden it's much more congruent. And yes, you interrupted them, but they're busy and they're trying to figure out their guest and they're like, oh, wow, wait a minute. This person could be our guest. Let's see if we can call her and get her in, right? Because we just had a guest drop out. So when you go with that approach, you have a much, much better chance of being booked. And it's also very respectful of that media
Yeah.
person. Instead of just asking, it's like somebody called you up right now. I was like, hey, Lindsay, can you do this favor for me? And you're like, who is this person? What?
Right? Yeah. I don't understand people think they can do that and get attention.
It's not
No,
the way to do it. Yeah,
100%. Now, when you're working with clients, obviously you're working with authors, getting them prepared for media opportunities. Talk about the strategy a little bit. Like, I imagine there's obviously prep work you do ahead of time. There's strategies in the on air, and
yeah,
then I imagine like how to leverage it and what you do afterwards.
absolutely.
So, what What do authors misunderstand in that prep part? Like you even said, oh, they'll just show up and answer a bunch of questions.
Yes,
Um,
yeah, I love that question because I think the main thing authors do is they confuse a media interview with an infomercial.
oh,
So think about an infomercial, right? So you turn on the TV and they're saying, "Hey, you should, let me talk about this,
mm,
insulated beverage holder thing." And they're trying to sell, sell, sell. Okay. But think about the difference. You pay for that infomercial. You pay thousands of dollars for the opportunity to be on, let's say, that local station, and do a, 15-minute interview where you are talking about your thing. I see those sometimes. It might be a chiropractor in that community,
mhm,
right? And they're talking about their practice and how they can help you with your back pain, etc. That is an infomercial that they have paid for, which is why they are selling you. If you go into the interview that you have not paid for, that we talked about earlier, this media outlet has done all the work and gone to all the expense of accumulating a vast audience, and or maybe not vast, but highly specific to your audience. They've done all that work for you. They have created that infrastructure. If you show up with the mindset that you are going to sell, 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 you are missing the point. You are there to serve, 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 because they've already given so much to you. Remember,
yeah.
a media interview can be a marketing asset that somebody else pays to create. That's what you're doing. You are walking into a marketing opportunity, not a sales opportunity. But when you market effectively, you create sales, right? And so, and I also think we're very, if you go to the gas station to get gas, they're going to try to sell you, muffins in the gas station. Come on in and get your muffin or whatever. I just want to get my gas, But we're constantly being bombarded with
Yeah.
ads. So when you approach it from, I want this person to buy from me, you turn something that could be transformational, a way that you help this person who's in the audience, who will remember that, into something transactional where, oh, this is just you trying to sell me something. So that's
Mm,
the biggest mistake.
yeah.
Authors think that they are there to sell, sell, sell when they're really doing a media interview to serve.
And I think the way you frame a media opportunity that they're paying for it, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And
Yeah.
and they have an audience that you can tap into. It's like, I don't know, you see it differently. You see it as a bigger opportunity. So it's like in that case, you do need to be intentional and strategic because you want
Yes.
to make the most out of it.
Yes.
What would you say is one of the biggest mistakes that they make while they're on camera? Or how can they improve their skills when they're on camera? Because it can be really nerve-wracking,
There's a lot that can't go wrong.
I'm sure.
And I know this too because these things have happened to me because I'm an author, a parenting author, and I've done a lot of, live television interviews and things like that. Um, I think the biggest thing is really to let the interview happen to you, to not contribute, right? And so we talked about that a little bit earlier when somebody has an interview and they're just answering questions. There's no strategy involved. That I think is very evident when you're doing an interview. Um, because as I said, I've worked on 10,000 interviews, and so many of these interviews, these people show up and they don't seem to understand, like somebody out there needs your help. And I think also, if I can share another thing, is maybe one of the biggest mistakes that authors make is they expect themselves to be flawless, to be
Mm.
perfect. They have this image in their head of, okay, I've got to show up as, super author and super
Uh,
like, fabulous. And sometimes they even speak differently.
oh, funny.
They will talk like this in an attempt to really enunciate. We're like, what
Oh
are you
dear.
trying to do? Like everybody's like paying
I
attention,
know.
control
You're
room, but
the
for the wrong
nerves.
reason. So this idea that they've set themselves up, that they cannot just be themselves. What if I stumble over a word? Okay, you stumble over a word. We all do that all the time. If it's a taped interview, you can pause and repeat what you said without stumbling, and we in the edit room will fix that up just perfectly for you. So I think that is really the one that kind of breaks my heart is that authors feel like, well, I can't do media because, I might make a mistake.
Mm.
Well, your audience does not need your perfection. They just need your help.
And authenticity.
Yes, absolutely.
And they're attracted to like personalities and they want to, your emotion. They want your vulnerability. They want to hear your values.
100%.
Not like this perfect
Yes.
doll that's, buttoned up.
It's true, Lindsay, because in when you do see someone who kind of presents like that, I feel like a wall goes up immediately. I feel like
Hmm.
even if I admire that person, I think, oh wow, I could never be like her. Like she's unreachable. Or there's something very insincere about how she's presenting herself, which in both ways are repel me away from them. So I think, like you say, that authenticity is a power because
Yeah.
it's just our humanity, which we need more than ever now in the age of
Oh my
AI. So
gosh.
so be
100%.
your imperfect self.
It's like even when you're watching late night television shows and it's like, Jennifer Lawrence is on there and she's quirky and silly and
Yes.
funny. She's not afraid to be herself and people love her for it.
Yeah.
Where I won't say a name, but they're just very like straight faced. And I was like, who are they really inside? I just can't fathom hanging out with the person.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've worked on many, many, many shows, different kinds of shows on television over 30 years. And I can definitely remember situations where somebody would be on camera answering a question, like a celebrity or something, an actor. They're on camera answering the question and they're totally up. And then the camera goes off them onto their co-star. And then they slump down.
Oh,
They like they're entered. They're like, I'm not on right now, so I can rest. But we are recording all of the cameras. They're called ISOs, isolated cameras. For editing, I might need to go to that shot, and that actor's like, okay, I'm
oh,
not on. I'm going to slump now.
interesting.
But you have to when you're on television, even if it's not live, you have to be engaged in the entire interview, and you can't just kind of shut yourself down. But maybe because actors are performers, maybe that's why I've seen some people do it that way. But yeah, you
Yeah,
have to be
that's so
completely engaged.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And you don't think about those moments. You're like, okay, well, they're not recording right now. It's commercial, but it's like,
Oh, it's during the interview. It's during the actual interview.
oh
They
my
don't even wait to
gosh.
the commercial. Yeah, they just slump down in their seats like, well, the camera's not on me. The red light went away. So, and there's an
Oh,
audience, a studio audience.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So many little nuances that you don't necessarily think of. I'm
Right.
assuming then you train your clients in and practice how to be interviewed,
Sure.
how to be on camera.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So during my coaching program, I have a group coaching program that I was mentioning earlier.
Hmm.
We spend a lot of time doing interview practice. And it's really fun because we get to do the first thing I do is a 5-minute interview. So, they've pitched me. I've taught them how to pitch. They've pitched me. I have an alter ego as a producer. My producer name is Miranda. So they pitch Miranda so that they can ask me questions if they want, hey, Mary, and then they're not pitching Mary too. So they pitch me as Miranda. I have my own show. It's fictional called Let's Talk. And this is the show that they're pitching to be on my TV show, supposedly. And so then based on that pitch, I interview them on that topic. So I know, you get, a form. And so, suggestions that people will put for questions or something like that, or maybe they're going to share some tips. And so that's what they do for me. They say, we're going to talk about these 3 ways to whatever. And so I do the 5-minute interview, which is so hard for them because 5 minutes is
I
not enough
know.
time, right? And there's setup and all this stuff, but it's so important for them to go through it as a 5-minute interview. And I'm wrapping it up now. We didn't get to all the things, maybe. It's so helpful for them. So they do that. And then the next week, they get to do a much longer podcast style interview.
Mm.
So we'll go for maybe 20 minutes, depending on how big the group is. And then the other interview we do is my favorite, and it's what I call the off track interview. And in this interview, let's say I'm interviewing you, Lindsay. Now, I know you and I'll know all about your book and all that stuff, but I pretend that I am an uninformed interviewer who is not hostile to you, but simply too busy they haven't read your book. They're reading the intro. As they read your intro, your bio, that's the first thing they know about you because they're off doing stories and all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. They're sitting there in the newscast set. And they're like, oh, today we have Lindsay Phillips, and they're just reading, right? And that's so super helpful for them because they see this whole process. And in that interview, I don't know anything about them. So I ask crazy questions. I ask, I get distracted. I ask about random things. I talk about my own life. I just make stuff up. I may even bring in props to distract them, like over the screen. And I take that from an experience I had being interviewed in Milwaukee shortly after my parenting book came out years ago. And I was doing some sort of demo on the set where we were like moving things around. And I, out of the corner of my eyes, as one of them, there were two guests, two hosts, they're asking me a question. Out of the corner of my eye, I see like a 9-foot chipmunk or something. And I'm like, what in the heck? And it was like a mascot for a sports team. And he was going to be interviewed next or was in a scene or something. Well, it totally distracted me.
Well, yeah.
But luckily, I'd been very intentional. So I knew what the questions they were going to ask me because we'd had, dialogue back and forth, which I teach my clients. And so I was able to pull myself back. It was live TV. I was able to
Yeah.
pull myself back and answer that question. But I love that idea of that, 9-foot chipmunk. And
Hmm.
so sometimes I may bring in some props to distract them. And the awesome thing is at this point they've been interviewed on this a couple times, and so the awesome thing is when they're like, she's doing this, but I teach them how to bring the conversation back when someone's
Yes.
distracted. And it's wonderful. So it's a lot of fun for me because I plot all these ways I can distract them or ask just bizarre questions. And I love to see how they, you know put me in my place and keep going. So
Love
it's a
it.
lot of fun.
I know, because it's one thing to understand the theory and understand the strategies, but it's a whole nother ball game to implement it. And
Yes, got to
especially
have practice.
when different things are thrown at you. Um, and even guesting on podcasts, hosts go rogue
Sure.
and they ask random questions,
Yeah.
and it takes skill and attention to like pull that back.
Yeah,
Love it.
absolutely. So we teach them all these phrases and ways to do it. And if you don't know the answer to the question, how to respectfully say that without
Yeah.
deflecting, you know, to, oh, I'm just going to talk about this other topic because you just asked me a question I don't know the answer to. So to acknowledge, well, that's such an interesting question. I hadn't heard that data yet. Is that a new study? Oh, yeah, it just came out today. Well, I would love to look over that and get back to you later because your audience deserves my informed opinion rather than off the cuff. So now that's I've answered their question, but in a
Hmm.
respectful way to them, and more importantly for them, also in a respectful way for their audience. I haven't deflected. I haven't, faked another answer or whatever. I haven't pretended to know something. They might have been trying to create a gotcha moment, but I didn't let
Mm,
them. So, um, and so I teach things like that, but I put them on the spot, and it really, really helps because my authors do a lot of media interviews, so
yeah,
they need to be prepared.
that's so good. Now, you've had the interview, how do you actually maximize the ROI from it so that it is an opportunity and not just a
Yeah,
souvenir?
yeah. Well, hopefully, what you're going to do is make sure that you serve. And because you've pitched in a way that's not like, hey, I've got a new book coming out, how can you help? You've pitched in a way, hey, you're sharing, you have tips to share on a particular topic related
Mm.
to your book and your expertise. So you're not focused on the book. I tell authors, you're not holding the
Mhm.
book up front the whole interview, but imagine yourself standing on the book. Imagine that's your platform, right? They're going to, you're going to mention the book in your bio, which you send to them. So of course they're going to mention it at the beginning. Ask them also to mention it at the end. More than happy to do it, even national shows. And then have one thing you want them to do at the end. So instead of saying, oh, here's my Instagram and here's my LinkedIn, and I'm also on this, and I'm also on this, and I'm also on this, and I have a free opt in if you want to get on my email, that like, don't give us choices because
No.
we're all so overwhelmed, right? So think of the thing, if you have 5 choices, you secretly want them to do one of those things. Maybe it is buy your book. Maybe it is get on your email list, whatever, if your book isn't available yet for pre order, but just have the one thing so that they do the thing you want them to do because you're super clear about it and you're super clear about the benefit of doing that. And then you'll get what you want, which is more people, let's say in your audience, or more people buying your book, and they'll get the benefit of your wisdom. So it's a win-win. And it's a
Yeah.
win-win-win because that media outlet has also won because they have brought value to their audience. So I like to say it's a win-win-win.
Yeah. Such a good strategy. And again, it's like everything that you're saying, I'm like ties into guesting. It's like publicity is publicity. Obviously, being
Yeah.
on media is a step up and a bigger ordeal. But the strategies are so aligned.
Yeah. Podcasts are, I mean, maybe we could call them new media. I don't know. They're essentially radio shows
Yeah.
that are more accessible. And they're highly, highly effective ways to share your message, to, share your expertise, help people, and grow your audience and sell books, etc. So I love podcasts.
Yeah. Same. For those that are authors or want to be authors or working on a book, sometimes they think that media is kind of like out of reach. You need to be a big star to have media.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
would you tell someone
No,
that
that's
thinks
a
that?
myth. That's an absolute myth. Sure, we see the celebrities, right?
Hmm.
But if you watch any show, Good Morning America or, Kelly Clarkson or, that sort of thing, there's going to be celebrities on those shows. Your local news, there's going to be local people who maybe are well known, but they always need experts. So if something happens in the, like, let's say if there was a, big celebrity divorce that was announced today of some couple that had been married for years and years and years, and everybody's kind of shocked. Well, maybe you're a divorce expert. And that's the moment. Pitch that day to those big
Ooh,
shows because you have something to offer on that because maybe you've seen a trend among your clients where people are getting divorced later after many years of marriage and you have insights to share. So you're not a celebrity, but at that point in time, they're not going to get either person from that couple to come on and talk about it. And so you can come on as that expert and you are, we think, oh, well, there's billions of people out there. There are not billions of people who are an expert on this thing. And so if you're an expert on divorce after 50 or something like maybe that's your thing, that's your moment. So
and
in
timely and relevant.
timely, yes, we in shows like, Good Morning America or the Today Show or things like that in the States, they are news programs. They're not entertainment. We have celebrities on those shows, but they're actually under the news divisions. I used to work on the
Mm,
Today Show at NBC and in Washington, D.C. And so they are news programs. So they're interested in very much in what we call news of day. So if there's a big celebrity divorce, we want to talk about that. Well, who are we going to get to talk about it?
hmm.
Or, it might be, any kind of news. It could be a big financial thing, or it could be, something related to health. Somebody's diagnosed with a disease and you're a doctor who, treats that disease. Well, you have something to offer. And so you're a regular person, you're not famous, but you're an expert. And
Hmm.
media values experts. So we value experts who also have books or have books coming out because that is also saying to us that your expertise can be quantified in a book, right?
Yeah.
And we don't
Instant
care maybe.
credibility.
Yeah, it's a credibility thing. And we don't care necessarily whether your book is with a big publisher at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, you see those people on TV. Okay. But we want your book to look good, but it can be self-published if it looks professional. If you're not design unless you're a book designer, don't design your cover. But I see that sometimes, and I will flat
Hmm.
out say to authors, this cover will not, you will not get, like, this will actually be an impediment to you getting national
Ooh.
media. So you need to redesign the cover. And they'll be usually in like the early stages of it. It's not finalized, it's not out in the world or whatever. But you need to kind of take all that seriously
Hmm.
because they're boosting your credibility to put you on their show. So it's important, but expertise is a really an effective gateway to national media.
Ooh, that's a good quote. That is.
I like it.
So, what would be the next step for someone if you've got a resource or a program or your website? What would be a great first step?
For someone to come to me or for someone
Hmm.
for themselves? Oh, to come to me. Great. Well, I've got something new I'm doing. Um, so I have this private podcast and it's
Love
called
it.
the Profitable Publicity Private Podcast, which is hard to say, uh, 5 times fast. Profitable Publicity Private Podcast. So it's a 5 to 6 episode. We're actually recording it this week
Awesome.
as we tape this. It's a short run audio series that we're running. It's kind of like a workshop that you can listen to on the go,
Ooh,
as opposed to having to show up necessarily
yeah.
for a long workshop. It's fast, it's easy to consume, but it's taking you through the steps of what everybody should know when they do a media interview, because there are really key steps. We talked a little bit about your intention. To me, everything starts with intention. So the first step is intention. And that is such an important thing. And I remember being on I think it was WGN in Chicago. It was a big station. And I had like a beach ball. I had something with me wherever I was at that station. I had a beach ball. And was another author there. And she said, "Why do you have a beach ball?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to be talking about forgiveness. And so I am using the example of a beach ball, which is very light, but it's a burden to carry around a beach ball all day. So why would you want to hold on to a grudge? It's a good way to teach about forgiveness for
Hmm.
kids." And my book is a parenting book about character.
Right.
And so she said, "Oh, that's so cool." And I said, "What are you going to talk about?" And she said, "I don't know, whatever they want to talk about."
Oh.
So she went on before me and I saw her interview, and I didn't have that terminology then, but it was a random act of media. There was absolutely no point to it. It was a lovely conversation. She was a lovely person, but it lacked strategy. And then I went on with my beach ball, and talked about forgiveness. And it made sense. It was strategic. So you really
And
want,
memorable, I'm sure.
yes, yeah, and visual, because I was
Hmm.
doing a visual thing on television. So that may not have been as important if I was doing a radio show. But I think it's super important to have intention. And so, and I talk about the old McDonald School of Media, the old McDonald theory of media, which is EIEIO. So it's you can educate in a media interview. Is that your intention? Do you want to teach people how to, fix their
Hmm.
finances? You can inform. Hey, maybe I'm a doctor and I'm going to share this data, this new study that came out about health, and I'm going to interpret that for you, right? So I'm informing you. You can entertain.
Hmm.
Maybe you are a chef and you're going to do a segment and you're just going to have fun with that studio audience, right? Or you can inspire. So you have a story, perhaps a memoir, and you are going to share your story in such a way that people can have takeaways for their own lives. So that's EIEIO. And then the O is, what is your offer? So what is that call to action at the end of that media interview, that single call to action? So you should go into a media interview knowing, what is my intention? Do I want to educate and inspire? You can do both. Don't try to do all four, but
Yeah, no.
and then have a call to action. Or am I just simply going to go in this time to educate? I'm just going to tell them about how to do this particular thing and share where they can get more information. Perhaps it's my book, perhaps it's my website, whatever it is. But so that's where intention comes in. I get super specific with my authors. What is your intention? So that's really that first key step. And I can share the other ones real quick. The next one is introduction. So that's that bio. So
Yeah.
not using the bio on the back of your book, actually writing a bio that is a media bio, which is to say it conveys not why you should buy the book. It's a really important distinction,
Mm,
but it actually conveys why you are the expert to be talking about that topic on that media outlet.
right.
So
That's a different
it's
approach.
yeah, because when you're physically holding a book in your hand or you're looking at it online, you can look at the back and you're saying, "Oh, this person lives in, Des Moines, Iowa, and they have, 4 kids and they have, 3 corgis." Oh my gosh, you can get distracted by that. "Oh, corgis make me think of the Queen. Wasn't the Queen wonderful?" Or whatever you want to say, right? So now you're talking about the Queen and corgis when you could be talking about your topic. So you do not want to mess around with that introduction. It really has to be super strategic. And then I'll just go through them real quick.
Yeah.
And the other one is information. What are you sharing in that media interview? So we're not going to talk about you the whole time. And that kind of mistake some authors make is the person will say, "So why did you decide to write your book?" And instead of really telling the story behind why this book is needed, why this information is needed, they'll say, "Well, my friends always told me I should write a book, and I didn't know if I wanted to write a book." And then they're talking about writing a book, but you're not on that interview to talk about writing a book. You're on that interview to talk about,
Right.
well, your book was about grief. So let me hear your story.
Absolutely.
That's really what they're asking you. They're asking you about your origin story. And then the insights. What are you going to share? Or do you have tips? Do you have, you know, something that you can help that audience with? And are you going to bring props like a beach ball? Do you want some graphics? So this is where that deep strategy kind of comes in, is what are the insights you're going to share? And then lastly, income. How are you going to benefit from this?
Mm.
Because when I say that you should serve, you should serve. Okay. You're not trying to sell, sell, sell. You will sell more when you serve, when you're there in service to the audience to bring value. But if you go away from the interview and you don't benefit in any way, you really haven't done your job. If you're just there to give tips to the audience, if you're just there to make sure the media outlet has a great expert, but you don't benefit, that's not a win-win-win, right? It's a
No,
win-win-lose. You also are spending your time, your energy, sharing your expertise. You are bringing value. You deserve to get book sales or more credibility, perhaps more clients, etc., more media interviews from how good that media interview was. And so don't be afraid to ask the media outlet, "Hey, I would love for you to mention this quiz I have on my website that can help people determine if they,
yeah,
need XYZ." Or I know you mentioned the book in the beginning, in my bio. I'd also love for you to remind viewers at the end of the interview that my book is available for pre-order. Ask. It's okay, because that audience wants to know, hey, what's the
yeah,
next step? This
that's
person
it,
shared
right?
value. Yeah. So that's really important. So
Yeah,
that's what we talk about. And in this podcast, this private podcast, I'm going to go through those 5 I's. They all begin with
awesome.
I, in greater detail than we
Yeah,
have today, and really help people so that they can, at the end of the podcast, really amp up the quality of their media interviews so they get results.
love it. And I'll put that link in the show notes, of
Awesome.
course. So it'll be on YouTube and on my
Thank
show
you.
page. So yeah, you have given speaking of value and
Oh, good.
serving, you have given so much. And not only that someone can take as an author, understanding media a little bit better and understanding that you can't just wing it, but even as a podcaster, guesting on a podcast, take those tips and build your intention, build your strategy.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing such great info.
Oh my
Really good.
gosh. I love chatting with you, Lindsay. Thank you. It's been an honor to be on your show.
Fabulous. So that is a wrap, folks. And I will see you in a couple of weeks on the Leverage Your Podcast show. Make it a good one. Bye.